Okay, shall we now begin the session then? Right. So, distinguished guests, respected speaker, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paradi Tangtang. I have a privilege to be your host this evening. So, good evening, everybody from Khon Kaen City, Thailand. I should say actually good evening, good afternoon, and good morning for those who are watching us live from around the globe. Right, thanks to each and every one of you for joining us virtually or online, and this is a very exciting event indeed. This virtual meeting is the very first attempt of the IGPME. As everyone knows, that our designated annual conference for PME 44 had been unfortunately affected by COVID-19 and has to be postponed to next year. So the committee still wants to provide a platform for everyone to have the platform for academic discussion and to stay in touch. So this is why we gather here today online and live to be able to experience the very innovative actually technology that we share all together at the same time around the globe. And we are also honored to have with us here our invited plenary speaker, Professor Marcelo Boba from State University of Sao Paulo, Brazil, who will be giving a talk about the very timely issue of distance learning technology. And his title is Future of Mathematics Education, Post-COVID-19 Digital Technology, Critical Education, and Epistemology. So everybody, please stay tuned. Now, before we get started, we would like to show you an insightful video presentation from PME First as our introduction. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy. Okay then, so right now we are going to proceed to the opening remark, opening ceremony. Today we have an honor from the three most significant persons behind the scene who have made this meeting possible. First, Associate Professor Chanchai Pantong Wiriyakul, MD, President of Khon Kaen University. Also joined by two gentlemen, Professor Marco Hanula, President of the International Group for the Psychology of Mathematics Education, and also Associate Professor Dr. Maitri Inprasit, Vice President for Education and Academic Services, and also he is serving as the 2020 virtual meeting of IGPME Chair. First, we are going to hear the opening remarks from Associate Professor Chanchai Pantong Wiriyakul, President of Khon Kaen University.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Khon Kaen University, it's my honor to welcome all delegates and participants to the 2020 virtual meeting of the International Group for the Psychology of Mathematics Education. It is also my great pleasure and honor to witness and be a part of these gatherings of scholars, educators, and researchers from various overseas countries. This is the first virtual meeting for PME in the new normal. The presence of the renowned and dedicated participants indicates the interest and motivation of academics in sharing and developing a body of knowledge for the sustainable development of society. The contribution from the participants is a sign of success in reaching our goal of improved education for a better society for the years to come. I would also like to extend my sincere gratitude to all guest speakers and presenters who represent the PME communities in this situation. Your efforts are very much appreciated. Appreciation also goes to our colleagues for sponsoring and co-hosting this conference. The International Group for the Psychology of Mathematics Education, IGPME, Institute for Research and Development in Teaching Profession for Asian, Center for Research in Mathematics Education, Center of Excellence in Mathematics, the Educational Foundation for Development of Thinking Skills, Thailand Society of Mathematics Education, the Institute for the Promotion of Teaching Science and Technology, IPST. Last but certainly not least, I wish to thank all the participants for your untiring determination to participate in this event. Also, I would like to thank to the International Affairs, Education and Academic Services, and Digital Division for your great collaboration to organize the event. I wish this conference a great success and that this project continue well into the future for the benefit of all countries of our participants. I now declare the openings of the 2020 virtual meeting of the International Group for the Psychology and Mathematics Education. Thank you very much.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the local organizing committee of the 44th annual meeting of the International Group for the Psychology of Mathematics Education, it is my great pleasure and honor to invite you to attend the 2020 virtual meetings of the International Group for the Psychology of Mathematics Education, which is held from 21st to 22nd July 2020. First of all, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to our co-hostings, the Institute for Research and Development in Teaching Profession for ASEAN, the Institute for the Promotion of Teaching Science and Technology, Center for Research in Mathematics Education, Center of Excellence in Mathematics, the Educational Foundation for Development of Thinking Skills, and Thailand Society of Mathematics Education. Appreciation also goes to all support from Khon Kaen University, the Education and Academic Service, the International Affairs, Digital Divisions, and in particular, Associate Professor Chanchai Pantong Wiriyakun, the President of Khon Kaen University. Moreover, I would like to express my gratitude for the support from the International Group for the Psychology of Mathematics Education and the opportunity to persist in hosting the virtual conference in 2020. However, due to the global pandemics caused by the new coronavirus disease or COVID-19 and the present situation of its rapid outbreak across the world, it is our regret that PME 44 has been inevitably postponed by 1 year. Thailand as the host country is also affected by this pandemic. In order to follow disease control measures. We accept the decision and sincerely apologize to everyone for the consequence of this unfortunate development. This year's virtual meeting is the most challenging since the past conference had never been held through online system before. The program has been designed to support the participants from various time zones, and it is arranged technically in such a way that people can approach smoothly and experience the themes of conference. According to the conference, the format of the program was shaped with the 2 slots, 3 hours per slot per day. We plan to have 2 working groups and 4 research reports. For the research report, we are going to pre-record with 20 minutes, then live discussion with 20 minutes. For the working group, we are going to pre-record with 40 minutes and then live discussion with 80 minutes. In addition, a very special speaker who is presented here today is Professor Marcelo Borba from the State University of Sao Paulo, Brazil. He will come with the themes of Future of Mathematics Education Post-COVID-19, Digital Technology, Critical Education, and Epistemology. At the end of the program, we will also have the PME Annual General Meeting. Hopefully, 2,535 participants from more than 98 countries will have a great opportunity to hear and experience the recent and valuable developments of mathematics education from this meeting. For those who want to explore the flavor of Thailand, we also have the opportunity to persist in hosting the conference in 2021. Please follow the updates on PME 44's website and Facebook page. Thank you very much.
Hello, greetings from Finland. As the president of the International Group for the Psychology of Mathematics Education, it is my pleasure and privilege to welcome you to the 2020 virtual meeting of PME. An especially warm welcome to everyone from the western parts of American continent. You deserve a good cup of coffee being up so early. And an equally warm welcome to the night owls of the East Asia and Australia and especially New Zealand. I hope you can keep your eyes open. In PME Constitution, it says that one of the objectives, and I would claim the main objective for PME, is to advance the field of mathematics education by organizing regular conferences around the world. Because of the COVID situation, we were forced to postpone PME 44 to next year. After this difficult decision, we were discussing in the International Committee whether we could arrange some alternative event to facilitate collaboration between PME members. When we first mentioned the idea to Maitri, he was immediately willing to organize the online meeting with his team. Without their readiness, this virtual meeting would not have happened. So a big thank you to Maitri and the local organizing committee of PME 44. This is beyond the expectation of organizing a conference to organize a double conference, first an online and then a regular conference. The PME International Committee approved organizing the conference, and the scientific program has been crafted by the International Program Committee. I want to thank everyone in the International Program Committee for their good work. Especially thank you, Maitri, but also thank you, Narumen, Viitiong, and Orlando from the local organizing committee. And thanks to the representatives of the PME International Committee, Seneida, Anthony, and Judy. It has been a pleasure working with you in this IPC. The decision for this virtual event was to make it a small-scale event, aiming for high-quality discussions and dialogue, rather than trying to aim for a very large audience. This time, we're also willing to get your feedback from how this conference is organized, and we want to build our capacity for building online events also in the future. So I'm here on the rocky shores of this small island in the Finnish archipelago. And you are far away from me, different parts of the globe. And yet, we are meeting today and tomorrow in the same Zoom rooms. So despite we are being physically distanced, I hope we build a nice social closeness. I wish you a fruitful and enjoyable 2020 virtual meeting of PME.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm sure we all have lots to take back from today's meeting. And I believe that Professor Markku Hannula is right here live with us at the moment. And maybe he would like to give some additional remarks for the event. Are you now here with us, sir?
Here I am. I hope the connection is strong enough without too much delay. I'm at the island where my summer place is, and I'm working through mobile connection. And it's kind of example that how people throughout the world these days could connect internationally wherever they are, where there's satellite connection or mobile network. I'm really admiring the work that you have been doing at the Konkan University. It's wonderful pre-preparation, and it's been really smooth and professional. So I'm really looking forward how this conference works. I know that for you, this is not the first time you're organizing an online event, but this is a different than the previous one. So keeping our fingers crossed that all the technical problems have been tackled, and well, everybody knows when you work with technology, something will fail at some point. So it's inevitable that something will fail. So I'm just wishing you all a good discussion, and I'm very happy to see that we are quite many here for the live discussion. So I'm looking forward to it.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much. And I do believe that everybody here and also who are watching online as well are very active to participate in this exciting virtual meeting at the moment. Last but certainly not least, I would like to invite again Associate Professor Dr. Maitri Inprasit, who is right here with me at the moment, to share some insights again.
Good evening from Thailand, and welcome all participants to the 2020 virtual meeting of the International Group for the Psychology of Mathematics Education. On behalf of the 2020 virtual meeting of the IGPME Chair and the 2021 PME 44 Conference Chairs, I would like to express my gratitude to the International Committee of the IGPME for giving Thailand an opportunity to host this first virtual meeting. It brings to our great pride, and since this is the first virtual meeting in our community. Besides the support from the IPC and IC, I would like to express my appreciation to the local organizing committee that from this event to be visible. Especially, I would like to thank a large group of staff who are undergraduate and graduate students for your hard work. And also special thanks to the technical team for your continuous works as editing sounds, noise, or pre-record video, system arrangement for releasing the pre-record and preparing, blah, 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 and creating a banner backup and more attractive for PME community. Thank you very much for your, and I hope you are enjoy the meetings now.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I think we are moving to the most important session that everybody is waiting for, the plenary session. For this session, we have two honorable guests who are going to introduce our plenary speaker and also run the discussion. So everybody please join in welcoming Professor Wee Chon Sia from University of Melbourne, Australia, and Professor Einat Haid Metsuyanim from the Technion Israel Institute of Technology Israel, who are going to run this session, please.
Thank you. Thank you for the lovely introduction. It's very exciting to see many familiar faces. And I am Einat Haid Metsuyanim from the Technion Israel Institute of Technology. And Wee Chon, can you open your microphone? Can both of us open the microphone? No? Okay, so I will continue. Wee Chon Shir from the University of Melbourne is with me. We are your co-chairs for this session around the plenary lecture, the fascinating plenary lecture given by Marcela Borba, Future of Mathematics Education Post-COVID-19, Digital Technology, Critical Education and Epistemology. I would like to just explain the rules that we have come up with for the discussion. The presentation has been pre-recorded. I hope that everybody saw it previously, and it will not be shown here. We will have 30 minutes of discussion. You are most invited to start writing your questions right now in the chat, and we will be following them. You may pose your questions either by posting them in the chat, as I said, or by raising your hand via the raise hand function. We don't necessarily see you in your video because there are many windows open. But in any case, in the interest of efficiency, please try to use the chat function, because these questions will take precedence over those that will be posed live. And now I'm happy to present Marcela Borba. Marcela C. Borba is a professor of the graduate program in mathematics education and of the mathematics department at UNECP State University of Sao Paulo in Brazil, where he chairs the research group GPIMEM or GPIMEM. Marcela researches the use of digital technology in mathematics education, online distant education, modeling as a pedagogical approach, and qualitative research methodology. He is an associate editor of ZDM, the International Journal of Mathematics Education. He has presented lectures as an international guest in 14 countries around the world. He is the current chair in the teaching committee of CAPES, a funding agency of the National Ministry of Education in Brazil. He has also been a member of program committees for international conferences. Marcela has published several book chapters and refereed papers in journals in Portuguese and in English. He's the editor of a collection of books in Brazil, which has been published over the last 12 years and includes 26 books today. He's currently leading a project of CAPES that promotes internationalization of research in Brazil. Please welcome with me Marcela C. Borba, and I would like, Marcelo, if you can open the microphone and introduce a little bit of yourself for 1 minute while we start gathering the questions.
Good morning, good afternoon. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you fine.
Okay. Very nice to see you. And in particular, my very good friend, Marco Ranula, who I haven't seen for a while. For those of you who have watched the video, I did say that I was going to PME for maybe 12 years in a row, and then I could not be following these meetings, so it's too bad to see that. And thank you, Maitri, and all the organizers for this wonderful support. Okay, it's running really well, and all the emails are very clear. So thank you so much for being so creative in this innovation. I'm gonna try to speak very slowly like this because of connection problems and because I'm used to online mathematics education. So I know that you have to slow down, even just slow down. And we all live in this situation that maybe digital technology had somehow made the virus spread around a little bit faster. And on the other hand, digital technology is what is saving us, is what's being able for us to make some kind of have this fantastic meeting. I hope, thanks for the introduction, Anna, and I hope that I can put one more country next year in my CV, because I'm going to count that as a talk to Thailand, and I would not have the stamp of Thailand in my passport. But in any case, I hope to do that next year, and I'm going to claim that I have witnessed that I was in Thailand virtually, and I was all over the world in this wonderful life. So thank you so much. I think I saw there almost 600 people have watched the pre-recorded video that I started at home on the outside in the garden, went to my university, to UNESP, and now I'm here in my old dining room. Now it's an office, okay? And dining room had moved to the kitchen. And so, and those of you who used to see shaved hair, so 4 months without going to the barber. So this is old days for Marco and others. So thank you so much. And maybe you wanna select some questions and some issues about critical mathematics education, digital technology, and epistemology.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Una, for your introduction. Marcelo, as the rest of us are typing our questions in the chat space and Una is curating them, let me seek your advice on one topic. I am very attracted to your analogy about all of us now being in the same aeroplane, but seated in different class seats. Let me extend this analogy further. In the cockpit are two pilots, as you know, a captain and his first officer, who is leading us through all these difficult times. And let's say the captains have a last name, one starting with T and the other one starting with X, and they are now having a big fight in the cockpit, one from America and one from China. So in this situation where the two pilots are having a huge fight, as the plane is going through some tough times and bring all of us with them, how do you think this might affect the development of math education in the short term?
Thank you very much for your very creative question. I don't know who asked them, but I think...
That was
no, okay.
That's my question.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. And I just think that it's a fantastic question. And what came to my mind first is that I would seek for help on women leaders. You know, women leaders, especially from New Zealand, from many other countries, have proved that they can pilot They can be a pilot much better than men in such crises, especially if the pilots are from these two countries that you mentioned, but in particular, if the pilot is the pilot of my country, is a non-pilot. So I would rather much more, to have to seek for help for women. I think that this metaphor, getting out of this and going back to more specific to mathematics education, I think that in the 18th century, in the 19th century, maybe mathematics education was conditioned by small tablets like this, where people could write and maybe just make addition and subtraction. Then we had paper and pencil, and we could even teach for some demonstrations in many things. Let's suppose that this crisis ends now, but we have a new COVID 2020 and then a COVID 2021, and we're going to live on and off in the way we are. This is definitely going to make change to mathematics education, because besides speaking slowly like I'm doing now, we're going to have to see what kind of mathematics is possible to teach in the same way that teachers had to do in the 18th and 19th century, and as let's say most of us have studied in the 20th century, with paper and pencil and few computers. And now it's a different balance. So thank you so much for your opportunity, but I would say that this fight among pilots, it's very bad for everybody who are in the different classes of the airplane. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Judy Anderson is asking, could you talk a bit more about how digital technology is both the solution and the problem?
Yes. I've been talking quite a bit that digital technology and tools, paper and pencil for that matter, they have active role. They're co-actors of knowing. I would say that when we have the Spanish flu, we had a war. So we had a lot of troops moving around. It was this way that Brazilian troops that went to Europe came back to Brazil and brought the Spanish flu to a country with hardly any hospitals then. So we created our national system of health, which has been destroyed in the last 20 years. So now we did not have this war with all these troops, but all of us are traveling a lot. A lot of this traveling has to do with digital technology, Internet in Things. So we have this, everybody has, their cell phones at the time in Brazil and whatever, and we have our life pretty much here. So I would say that a lot of the problem that we see, that we have by coronavirus was also due to this fast traveling, this huge amount of traveling we do. And that we all love, all the PME people love. So we don't have to be guilty, but we love that. And I'd rather be at Thailand, get to know these beautiful views. And plus we have much more in a conference than in an online conference. Although we have to travel and we spend the time in the economy class, we do have we have the chance of having coffee, of trying to think of a new book, of trying to think of different things that's hard to do in this online environment. But of course, Judy, it's part of the solution now. And we all became experts in Zoom, Skype, I forgot the Google Meet and everything else. So in different platforms for different kind of meetings. And like you said, well, pre-record it's better on YouTube, and now Zoom, maybe it's closed and more private. Let's have like this. So all these tools are shaping the way we are relating to each other. And this is part of the solution, and it's part of the new normal. It's part of the new thing. So maybe this online and the restrictions to travel and to move or to leave home might make a difference. And when I leave home, I still have to be using this all the time. And many of you are probably still using that too. So this has a beautiful thing of my soccer team here as well. But anyway, so I have 15, 20 of these here. Thank you.
Okay. I'll just say that in some instances, I see that some of the questions may have already been answered, at least partially. So I'm moving ahead. And if people feel that their questions have not been answered, please write again in the chat. Marku Anula is asking, and he's saying, Marcello, in minute 41:20 video, you're saying internet is the main subject community to provide mathematical information. Teachers are not the main source of information anymore. Are you saying that access to internet has become more important for educational equality than access to schools? I could be tempted to believe that. This would also make a digital leap possible in the developing countries in the same way as the mobile internet has allowed remote places to connect with the world. With digital solutions, we can easily upscale the effect of educational innovations much faster than it was ever possible with traditional schooling. How would you like to respond to that?
Thank you very much, Marku. The friend's supposed to ask easy questions, not tough ones like this. So, but in any case, I'm still going to have a drink with you when we meet. I hope that's it's not too far.
I am this kind of friend.
I know that. And I like that very much. And it was a very important question because on minute 41, that could lead somebody to think first that internet is more important than teachers and that internet is more important than schools. First of all, I said that internet, and let me make that very clear, is these days the very source of information. So I was getting prepared here for this conference, and I got my cell phone, I got the email, and I decided to check with the two. Now I have a computer with two screens here because of this new normal, and a cell phone and a laptop. So I was here with 4 screens, and all of a sudden saying, so let me just check if the time is right. Otherwise, I'm gonna get to Zoom 1 hour later or things like this. And now let me try to make some tests with somebody who is in another country and whatever, seeing how this is working and things like this. So internet, and this was the analogy as if I was learning here to become to debate for PME, became the main source. But we need teachers, we need Maitri, we need all the support staff from PME, we need people to be talking to us, we need this community. So no, I think, and I think I defend that, now yes, I did on the video, I never promoted online education for kids for the very idea that I believe that schools are very, very important, social contact and knowing about the other. Education and the crisis we live in this moment in the world has to do with the lack of paying attention to others. In Brazil, there are many people who do not use masks because they do not think of others. They think they're supermen or superwomen, and they somehow do not think of others. So this is one thing that we should be thinking about. So no, on the other hand, we should not be making oppositions of internet and schools in the same way we never did of paper and pencil and schools. So what I'm trying to say is that the classroom is not in this cubic form of this room that I am at right now. You know, it's now is expanded because I'm in this cubic room, but I'm together with Finland, Israel, Thailand, New Zealand, Australia, many other countries. So this is the expansion that somehow is going on. And I've been going much less to my library before March 15th than I went 10 years ago. Why is that? Because internet is somehow these sorts of information to. And I can triangulate. I can go to 2 sites and whatever. And my students have been doing that for 15 years. Hey, teachers, are you sure this is a minus sign? I think it's a plus sign, you know, in this formula here, the hyperbola, you should check it. Because they already, you know, you go think they're cheating. No, they're just checking on their library, you know. So yes, we should have kids back to universities and schools, and somehow we should be prioritizing that. I should have my hair cut, you know, I should have many other things that would make life more interesting. But at this very moment, we experience maybe this new kind of school that was science fiction. Just the other day was science fiction.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. There are several more questions coming up. I will, and we have about 8 more minutes. So I think I'll read at least 2 for you, and you can choose what you want to focus more on. So Esther Levinson is asking, can you possibly add something regarding digital technology in preschool mathematics education, especially during this pandemic? And Farida Nuharasana is asking, could you explain the issue of authentic assessment in mathematics online classroom during this pandemic situation? So both these questions are asking you to get a bit more into the specificities, I think.
Thank you very much. I've been writing a new research proposal since April, May, and I have to turn in any day now. You know, the deadline is coming up. And I have included, you know, open questions about things that I believe there are no research, like online education, not for preschool, because that's far away from my specialty, but, you know, for 10 years old, for 11 years old. And I believe that the youngest the kids are, more help you need for kids. And so you need parents, or you need a responsible other. You need somebody to help. So how are we gonna help these people? Moreover, we may have different kind of help. I'm a PhD. You know, the mother of my kids is a PhD. So that's very different than having 2 parents who are bricklayers. So how are we gonna assess that? How are we gonna input the assessment of what my kids would have if I had young kids? You know, they grown up now. But let's suppose if I have that, well, it's a different kind of help and different kind of structure in the house. They could be in a different room. So that's very different than some kind of a shack in the slums of Brazil, in which in one room you have 6 people living, you know, and you have 1 cell phone for 3 people. So assessment and making authentic assessment is very connected to this. I'm putting open questions for this, and I hope Marco Hanula and others are also going to do research on the whole issue about feelings, about affect, and how that has been changing without having your friend here. So I think there's a huge open agenda for PME, and I hope to be face-to-face in PME in Thailand next year to discuss that in many working groups and other forums.
Okay. I will ask for a second from the organizing. Do we still have several minutes? We are a little bit confused if we have to have already finished, or do we have 5 more minutes, Judy? So
5 more
so
minutes.
We still have the
5 more
I
minutes.
can have 2 hours, but 5 more minutes. So.
Okay, great. Okay, so I think we have time for 1 more question. So Ram Krishna Panti is asking, what are the new possible pedagogies in mathematics teaching and learning at the current time? How do we face the challenges of teaching and learning mathematics at the moment in the condition of an inadequate access of technology in developing countries? And I will say that several more people asked, you can see later in the chat, about the challenges.
So thank you very much. And I think that it's very, one thing about content-wise, since we have not talked about it, I think that since preschool, we should be teaching everything that has to do with exponential functions. I think that's the main thing for math education for somebody to become a citizen today and understand how virus can spread out and understand what grown-ups, some leaders in the world cannot understand, which is that you have to slow the derivative a little bit if you want everybody to fit in the hospital, you know, at a given time. And it seemed like grown-ups could not understand that. So we should be starting that. And I put that little video that's very interesting for people to understand that. Second, we should be more and more using pedagogies that bring the interest of the kids. So if it is boring to have a whole kind of education with little, you know, blocks like this, let's learn this today, this tomorrow, and whatever, it's even worse when you are at home, because at home things are like this. You know, your brother's doing one thing, then your father arrived from work, your mom arrived from work, and they swift and things like this. So this is, we should be more and more looking for pedagogy that make valuable the interest of the learner, you know? So the things like we've been calling modeling and student-centered pedagogies. And this has to do with Corona. So we must be making kids understanding Corona. More and more, we should be practicing what we said before about interdisciplinary. So it doesn't make sense. We should be studying quite a bit of the relation of exponential function, of combinatorics and biology. And at the same time, we should be having kids maybe discussing a very interesting matter that I raised a little bit in my talk. Are the virus living beings or not? It's a huge polemic in biologists, but it's very accessible. You can discuss that, you know, once you discuss cells and whatever, the two sides. To know what the truth is very funny. And just to finish this part, I raised the issue that we all know, you know, as a combination or socially of humans and medias. We know virus because we have a collective of scientists with microscopes who can go and see virus. Otherwise, there are no virus. And more, we have education and we have communication because we have Zoom, internet, Marcelo, PME, Maitre, and all the excellent organizers. So I also would like to thank you for this great effort. And if PME finds some way on YouTube or whatever that I can keep answering questions in writing form, I'll be glad to do it. And hopefully in coffee. So thank you for the 600 of you who watched the video, and I don't know, 67 or 80 who are here putting all these wonderful questions. So I also said goodbye, and I would like to take Ana and Marco and Maitre and all the staff and Wee Chong. Okay, sorry if I could not pronounce the names correctly, but this is part of the international conference.
Great.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Let's give a round of virtual applause to Marcelo. As much as you would like to talk for 2 hours, we would like to listen to you for 2 hours as well, but unfortunately, time is not with us. I am afraid that we will need to draw this discussion to a close for now, so that we can attend the next session. But thank you everyone for participating, and thank you, Marcelo, for responding to our questions and comments. Hope to see you soon in preparation for the next session for the first RR report. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Especially for our plenary speaker, Professor Marcelo Bober, for his insightful and thought-provoking perspectives. Dr. Maitre here also mentioned that when you come to Thailand next year, we would, of course, present the token of appreciation for your discussion today also to Professor Wee and Professor Ainat as well. นะคะ Also I would like to thank our kind moderator Professor Vichon Sia from Melbourne University and Professor Einat Haid Metsuyanim from the Technion Israel. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to turn the stage over to the next session's MC, Professor Thang Kiawngang, visiting professor of the Institute for Research and Development in Teaching Profession in ASEAN.
Thank you, Dr. Paraditongthang. Okay. I wish everyone for having a good day. So it is my pleasure to continue today's event as a moderator for the following session of 2020 virtual meeting of the International Group for the Psychology of Mathematics Education. And I also hope that Professor Wee and Professor Annette still need your assistance to chair the following session, okay? So to begin this research report presentation session, I would like to invite once again the chair of the session, Professor Wee from University of Melbourne, Australia, and Professor Annette from the Technion Israel Institute of Technology, Israel, to be our honorable chair. So the research report is going to present by Catherine Perms and her team from University of Melbourne, Australia, with the research title as The Importance of Understanding Equivalence for Algebra Reasoning. Okay, I will give the floor to the two chairs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome, welcome ladies and gentlemen, to this very first research report discussion session of the 2020 virtual meeting of IGPME. For those of you who have just joined us, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you wherever you are, joining us here on Zoom and on YouTube Live. And for the benefit of those of you who just joined us too, I am Wee Tiong from the University of Melbourne, and with me as the co-host is Unad. As you are aware, the conference presentation is pre-recorded and therefore will not be shown here just like for the previous plenary. Our first research report presenter, Kath Pern, is one of my work colleagues and is a lecturer in mathematics education at the Melbourne Graduate School of Education in the University of Melbourne, Australia. She has taught in both undergrad and postgraduate courses in early childhood, primary, and secondary mathematics pedagogy. Kath also provides professional development courses for teachers and school leaders in Victoria and interstate. She is particularly interested in the identification and assistance for students who are mathematically at risk of not meeting the national minimum standards and those who are not being challenged of meeting their mathematical potential. In addition, Kath is also a senior research fellow at the Australian Council for Educational Research, or ACER for short. The research report, which we are discussing shortly with Kath, is entitled The Importance of Understanding Equivalence for Developing Algebraic Reasoning. And it is jointly written by Kath together with Max Stevens and Robin Pierce, also from the University of Melbourne. So with a virtual applause, let's welcome Kath to this discussion session.
Thanks, Wee Tiong. Can you hear me?
You may want to, yes, we can. So you may want to introduce yourself to us over the next minute or so.
So as Wee Tiong said, I work at the University of Melbourne. I'm particularly interested in helping students at risk. And I have been studying how students work with fractions probably for nearly 30 years. So I initially started in a small research project with Robert Hunting and Gary Davis, where we looked at the links between algebraic, whole number thinking and fractional knowledge. And this research paper is just a very tiny part of a much larger study where we were looking at the links between algebraic thinking and fractional research, fractional knowledge.
Thank you. For the audience and for everyone else who are participating, please feel free to write your questions and post your questions in the chat box. But in the meantime, Kev, maybe I will start with a question for you, which is that looking at reading your papers and listening to the presentation that you have prepared for us, I am wondering if we are to, or if you are to design the questionnaire again that you use for this study, what would you change to the questionnaire?
Well, I think because there were so many non-responses from the students, and one of the sad parts to me was actually reading the comments the students wrote on their papers, where quite often it was they had question marks, they had I don't know, there was the odd message which said, "Dear Mrs. Pern, this is not my fault, my teacher did not teach me this." And certainly with the tasks that we used, I thought that certainly students, definitely in the junior secondary, but certainly in the upper primary, should have been able, they weren't difficult questions, or I didn't feel they were difficult questions. And I guess if I was rewriting this, I would certainly add perhaps easier questions. We just chose to use multiplication and division. We could either make it easier by doing addition and subtraction, or we could make it easier by certainly changing the size of the numbers. But I guess if I wanted to take it further, I would also think about interviewing students like we did with the structured interview, which is another part of our research. But certainly getting this, once working, can we actually structure the tasks so they can move and almost scaffold that move from calculations or non-responses to actually having a go. And I guess too, the results showed that there were students in year 5 who were equally capable as those students in year 8, but far too many year 8 students did not respond because it was in a format they didn't recognise.
Thank you very much. There is a question. Una, do you want to pose that question?
Yeah, there's a question from Marku.
May I have a question? Masami Soda.
Perhaps I'll read the question from Marku. So Marku is asking the equation 3 divided by 4 equals 15 divided by x can be solved by examining either the relation between 3 and 4 or the relation between 3 and 15. To me, these latter 5 times as many seems easier than the former 1/3 more. I wonder how sensitive students are to the actual numbers in the task and how much that would influence their solution strategy and their success in solving a task.
Marku, we actually found that, yes, the actual numbers used were very important. Students would react differently if they liked the numbers or found the numbers slightly easier. That's why I think an interview would be really good too. This was a test we sort of constructed, and maybe we need to sort of go back and revisit. But yes, certainly the actual size of the numbers, whether or not the students considered them friendly numbers. But if you looked at the multiplication one, where we use very friendly, 5 times something equals 10 times something, there were still students who did not even attempt those. So sometimes it's a matter of the format rather than the actual numbers. I hope that answers your question.
I think that's interesting because these days with online questionnaires, being used more and more often, then we're interested to also find out how that format might influence the results. There is a question here which I'm going to post on behalf of a user by the username of LZAC01. And the question is, do you think that the results of the study would be different if you pose the questions in the context of modeling physical situations and not just numerical relationships?
Quite possibly, but when we set up the actual tasks, it was a doctoral study. We were limited, we knew that we had limited time. We did have 600 students. We knew that when we walked into the school or into the classrooms, we had to make sure that the tasks were manageable within a fairly short time. In our fraction screening test, we did actually use contexts more rather than just symbols. But in the algebraic thinking one, I guess it was probably mainly because we were very aware of the amount of time a test would take. Also very aware of the difficulty a lot of students have with more heavily worded questions. So once you start setting up tasks in context of real life, the tasks become far more wordy, and we didn't want that to, I didn't want that to happen, because that would complicate things. We certainly didn't predict the outcome. We did trial the test. We trialled the test with a Year 6 class, and it appeared to give us all the results we wanted. It was only when we went to the larger group where we found the non-responses, the question marks, the I don't knows, or the this is not my fault, my teacher did not teach me this. So yes, certainly given luxury of time, I definitely would like to try it with real life situations.
Thank you. Thanks for that. There's a question being posed by Judy Anderson. And the question goes like this. Do you think that the problem for the students might be a result of a reliance on textbooks, particularly given that the questions might have been in an unfamiliar context for the students?
I think you're right, Judy. While many more of the Year 5s and 6 students attempted the questions, they may not have been as successful. But it was more the Year 8 students who would not even attempt to do the questions because they were in that unfamiliar format. And certainly the reliance on textbooks was very obvious in the Year 8 and Year 9 sample. But in our Grade 5, 6 sample, the students aren't used to using textbooks and were certainly much more willing to give it a go, even though they may not have been correct.
Thank you. I will now present 2 short questions for you, and you can answer them in any order you like, Kat. The first question is from Masami Isoda, Professor Isoda from Japan. And his question is, in Australia, is fractions and relationships that are explored in your study taught formally at the primary school level? And the next question is from Ram Panti from Nepal. And his question is, in his experience, Year 5 students usually find it difficult to learn fractions, including those that are posed verbally, and that's in the Nepalese classroom context. How would you suggest that these problems be overcome or be resolved?
I guess over the time that I've spent, which has been a very long time, looking at what students do with fraction problems, there certainly seems to be a need for a much more hands-on approach where we're using concrete materials. We use things like the measurement model where they move from paper folding to fraction walls to number lines. There's certainly a whole heap of research about teaching fractions, starting with the definitely the hands-on. But I think we also need to, one of the things we found with the bigger study was that rather than always taking parts of a whole, we also need to start with the part and find the whole. So it's in combination, being able to get the kids to talk about it. And I guess one of the biggest drawbacks that I've noticed over the years is that there's a lot of teachers out there who are not comfortable with either fractions or algebra, and therefore it becomes a very formulaic way of teaching. They teach the rules without understanding. And so therefore the students can perform the rules if they can interpret what the question is asking, but put in a slightly different way, they don't know what to do. So I hope I've answered that question. Max, did you want to add something more to that? I think Max is around too, so I don't know whether he wants to add something. Maybe not.
Yeah, I can't find Max on the screen, so
he does, and I'm trying to unmute him. Yeah.
Yep. Max, you're live.
Oh, thank you. Kath, it's not just about fractions. I mean, the central topic of the paper is about equivalence.
Yes.
And we identified, relying on work of others, including Ian Jones of the UK, the operational sense of equals that a lot of students still have by the time they finish primary school. Equals means the answer. And then I think, as Kath points out, many teachers think that a full understanding of equals or equivalence means balance. But as Ian Jones points out, you need to have a substitutive sense of equals where you can see what varies and what doesn't vary. And that was where some of the children could understand the questions quite well, particularly the box A, box B questions. But we feel that there are many students who still have an operational sense of equals, and that's where the interview would be particularly useful in discovering where those children were perhaps not stuck with an operational sense of equal, but were dependent upon it.
When I was first teaching, which is a long time ago now, in the primary school, we used Cuisenaire, and year 2 students had a really good understanding of equality, where they knew that 9 and 2 was exactly the same as 5 plus 6, because they made up maths using the coloured Cuisenaire rods and could transpose and substitute numbers. So they certainly had moved way beyond the operational feeling of notion of the equal sign. But we threw that out, and now I think we need to sort of bring something like that back, especially in those early years of school.
If I can come back, our earlier question said, could you present the questions in a concrete form? And Kath answered that. It's very difficult to do so in an interview or a questionnaire. But the concrete forms are very, very important for teaching the basic idea of equivalence, and also for helping students to think about going to the whole when they know only the part. So I'd be using concrete situations to establish that understanding.
Okay. I wish to thank very much Kath and Max for joining her and explaining brilliantly and answering brilliantly all the questions. I also want to thank you for a very clear presentation. I enjoyed it very much, and I think everybody who has presented the questions here probably enjoyed it. And I'm pleased to move back the discussion to the coordinators. Thank you very much. Please join me in thanking.
Thank you.
And Max.
Thank you very much to the presenter, Professor Catherine, and her team, Max, for giving us an interesting discussion. And we would like to take this opportunity to thank both chair Professor Witiong Sia and Professor Annette Hyde Mejulianin. So for their effort to make this event a success. Next, we are going to have 10 minutes break from now. And after the break, we will have 2 working group discussion, which we are going to conduct it concurrently in 2 different rooms. So you need to make sure that which one you need to access the participant by using 2 different links depending on your preference. So if you are working for the going to access working group number 1, which is led by Professor Anna, as well as group 2, which is led by Julian Brown. So please make sure that you will access to the related link. So we will continue after the 10 minutes break. Thank you. Netherlands, and her team to start the working group discussion.
Hi. Can you actually hear me? Yes. Yes. Hi, everybody. Very happy to see you all. I'm a little bit debating concerning the schedule, if we formally should wait a few more minutes so that all participants who have scheduled their moment to pop up would pop up. And in the meanwhile, I'm trying to solve the technical issues because during the working group, we plan to work in small groups, and I do not see an option to make a breakout rooms for the moment. Can somebody help me with this, please? Aha, perfect. Thank you so much. That's now happened. Very good. Now, actually, I'm going to pass this to Chiara. Chiara, now you should be able to do it. All right. Shall we officially start or shall we wait a little bit? What do you think, Marco?
I think, I'm not sure about when we were scheduled starting. I thought it was 20 past and that would be the time. So maybe the staff can check.
20 or 30?
Are we already in the air?
Okay, are we, what is the schedule? Okay, let's just start. I think that's, everybody can catch up the moment. So just once again, hello everybody, and I'm going very quickly to walk you through a small presentation as an introduction. Yes. Okay, so this is a working group on embodied processes and specifically highlighting the methodological aspects of it. And just to recall very quickly the introductory meeting that we hope you have at least scrolled, we are not going to discuss the complex relations between embodied and bodily processes and mathematics education. There are diverse theoretical views. We believe that there is connection. That's for now. Of course, debate processes and methodological aspects. And as Chiara have reminded us, the affective processes are not only our conscious beliefs and ideas, but also physiological processes somewhere in the brain that can be felt as emotions, but also observed in the videos. Then, as Christina highlighted, there are gestures available for the observations because the gestures combine individual function of representing situated thinking processes and social functions. So that's why they are available for everybody. And this is probably why it is from gestures embodied research started in mathematics education. But for the moment, there are diverse technologies available more than just videos, such as heartbeats response or skin conductance response, and multiple ways of recognizing from the videos such things as gestures, motions, sketches, speech recognition system also exist, and of course eye tracking. So in this methodological lens, we would like to highlight what does just observation of a video plus possible technologies bring us into understanding the embodied processes of learning. So if we talk about affective processes, then let's focus on how we can study them. and the kind of physiological and bodily parameters we might use as the multimodal learning analytics, and what does eye movements finally tell us. So during this and tomorrow working sessions, we will be working with data from multiple eye tracking math track project. It's actually the very ambitious project when 5 eye trackers are involved. These are glasses that you see in the video with a scene camera looking in front of a person and 2 cameras looking inside to track their eye image. So finally, you will see videos with the on which the small red circles are highlighted. On this slide, I tried to make a correspondence between each visual frame and each student whom you can see on top. So there are 2 videos that video record groups of the students, and then there are 4 perspectives. A perspective of a student number 2, you can see here, number 3 and number 4, and the teacher who eventually walks around. This slide might help you as you are watching this video, as it's super intensive video. It's you can make just a screenshot now, or it's also available on a YouTube. There is a link to Google Doc with this frame. So as a result, you can see the is actually present. To understand better what is going on in the video, very quickly I'm going to walk you through the problem. They are all working on a geometry problem, and they're searching for an optimal way between 4 points, so the shortest cable that would allow to connect them. And in order to intuit the solution, you might recall the Soap film in some scientific museum, which actually takes the shortest path. But that's not what students come up. They use this kind of tracks. And then during the video that we will be working on, they discuss a possibility of connecting all points with a circle, which finally will lead them to a correct solution. In this today's session, we want you to work with the data as close as possible. Just the question, what kind of embodied processes and indicators of mathematics teaching and learning do you see in the provided data? Try to observe, try to be as attentive as possible. So just to highlight, we talk about embodied processes, whatever happens with the students and teachers' bodies, and we would like to consider it in the context of mathematics teaching, learning, and problem solving. So as a framework for your thinking process, I suggest the following. What are the embodied processes do you see? How is it related to mathematics education? And what else you might like to observe, to measure, and what kind of data could be helpful? We will be working in a breakout room. And use clean the board. There is some noise on the we will each breakout room will receive a link to a Flinga board. This is a place where you can post your ideas. So we expect each group who will be working to post their ideas as some short messages, so that you're actually protocol the conversation and maybe sort out observations. Finally, there is a video. You all have already seen it, we hope, very much online at the end of our introductory videos. As you will be watching it, make sure you know how to slow down things on YouTube, since it's very quick video, and it starts at 36 minutes, 10 seconds on YouTube. And finally, if you are about to watch it together in the breakout rooms, then make sure you share sound with your peers during the conversation. So that's it. I see the question that Flinger, yes, will be more Flinger boards. You will receive them in the breakout rooms. And that's it. Good luck, and we invite you.
I would
for
like
a
to,
conversation.
yeah,
Yes.
I want to check that is everyone already happy with the Flinger using, everybody had a chance to test it, or do you want me to show the basic functions? I'm assuming that people had time to work through it, but if there are many who are still needing it, we could. So basically,
Yeah.
you see, you just write in the spot message, and then you send it, and then you drag it where you want to have your message be.
You will see this kind of string on top, and also one nice option that you can send picture, which might be a screenshot of the video of a moment that you discuss right now, for example. Yeah, I think the interface is pretty straightforward, and if you have any questions, you can always message us in Zoom. So that's it. Let me stop sharing with you somehow. How do I do it? Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I hope that Chiara will split us to breakout rooms now, and good luck for everybody with the interesting conversation.
Yes, and I created the room.
Okay. So there will be about how many people per room?
7, 8.
Okay.
Then you are in room number 4 with Marco.
Good. Can you press a button? Then I think we will all be separated to the.
Actually, we got 40 minutes for this session, so we still got time.
How much time do we have?
Write you in the chat. Christina, you did it.
Right. Just one thing, Chiara. I think there's some well, like sleepy accounts of people. Like I know of at least one person that was just like, oh, I just hang in here because I want to go to the one after that. So I don't know how many people will be like that. And
But
so that the groups might be
I
pretty
can
small.
manage this. I can. Is it Karen, the only person here?
Mike is there.
I'm here as well.
I think
And
there's other
Oh,
people.
hi.
Yeah, I'm here.
Because I
Arinda
can join. I can let you join another room in this case.
And we are
you,
four
Christina,
people
can
right
leave,
now, right?
Yeah.
Or
Why don't
you can discuss. It is not a problem to be a little number.
It's kind of
Why
like
don't-
three others than those people that are not involved in the working group, and I don't want to take over like the discussion because I obviously have a certain focus.
Yeah.
Why don't we stay here? Because otherwise it'll take too long to go into the group.
That's true.
So I share the link to the Flinga board that you should use. It is on the chat. And then I leave you and I go to the other rooms to double check if everything is okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye bye. See you later.
Okay.
So Christina, now that we have you, maybe you can tell us again what the purpose of this group discussion is. That would be very helpful. Like if you could lead a bit.
So yeah, Anna already said some things about that. Like I think the main focus of the working group should be to see how can we observe the embodied processes and what can we learn from them. And the focus would be on what affect can we see, or what can we see about affect, which gestures can we see and how can we analyze them, what can we see through eye tracking, and which kind of multimodal learning analytics would be useful to observe, and which are actually also what kind of embodied processes are actually what could we see and what can we not see in the video data that we have, or in the eye tracking and video data and this combined data. I think those would be discussion points that we can start with and that we can build around in the Flinga.
Okay, cool. I mean, maybe I'll just start brainstorming a bit if you guys are comfortable.
Yeah,
with that.
sure.
So I had a look at the video, like this eye tracking video that was in the YouTube video that you shared, and I found it quite complex actually. So it was a lot of data with these 3 kids, eye tracking glasses, and then the teacher's eye tracking glasses as well, and all these things happening at the same time. So for me, it was I was trying to understand what's happening there. So I think that for a beginner, it was very complex to understand what's going on, and at the same time looking at what embodied processes we can investigate. I mean, of course, it's obvious that it shows the eye movements. It's kind of trivial. But and of course all the gestures and stuff, but it was a bit difficult to find the focus. Hi, Sebastian.
I was late.
Nice mustache. First time I see you with that. Sorry. Yes. So it was complex. I found it too. I don't want to take over the group. So because I obviously already discussed with the other working group members. So I would impose opinions on you, and I want to avoid that. So. Sebastian, did you watch the video?
Yes, I did, and I was overwhelmed by these 6 angels of seeing the situation and of following what they are talking and reading the English subtitle. It was very hard for me. So I think I saw it twice or more, and I'm still very overwhelmed by all the data.
Yeah, I just said exactly the same. So it was very complex to even understand what's going on. And then it kind of took me a while to figure out that one of the students' classes actually that was not the video of the boy, right? There was only 3 students and the teacher's video, and not the boy. And then I was wondering why is not the boy's video in there? And it was very confusing actually.
Yeah, and for me it was new to work with eye tracking, so I never worked with it before, so it was unfamiliar to see that and to concentrate on what they are looking at and try to figure out what this could mean.
I have a question. I was wondering when I was watching the video, I was also thinking about how would eye tracking technique will work for children from say non-native speakers, or imagine a classroom situation where there are multiple languages present and there are say native speakers. Because I saw this in Sweden last year in Stockholm, in a school in Stockholm, where there were many immigrant children, and those who knew Swedish had a different. They were not very focusing, but there was no eye tracking methodology used, but it's just my observation. But those who were not Swedish speakers, they were trying to understand more, and it was evident from their gesture and the way they were paying attention compared to the native speakers. So I'm just thinking aloud, how would eye tracking technique, if at all, can be used in, in these kinds of research which looks at language diversity? Have you focused on some of these questions on language diversity?
I do, yeah. But that's not with eye tracking. So maybe that question actually gets us in a good direction of maybe we should focus more because of this complexity. And I noticed that too. It's kind of like if I'd speak Finnish, I think it would be much easier, but it's just like nothing I just remotely have any connection point to. So maybe we might talk about the potential that this data could give us, because seeing that once or just looking through that with these 6 perspectives is probably too much to it's too much to ask for carrying out an analysis right now. Karen, please.
Yeah, I couldn't find the raised hand on my thing, so I'm raising my hand. Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And obviously, if we had more expertise in eye tracking, we watched this many times and we were familiar with all sorts of things, we would probably get more out of watching that. But going back to this notion that you were just saying, what does this bring to the fore? And I'm thinking particularly about affective processes, because I see with also the information on gesture and with eye tracking, there was also discourse going on, which helped me understand a lot. And I think these particular methods on their own don't particularly tell me much about the affect of students. It doesn't tell me much about what they're interested or valued or what they're feeling. It can add to the picture, but I think we still don't really get inside, the student's mind about particular things. So I think it would still need to be accompanied with some, interview, some interrogation, some more feedback, maybe a combined sort of data that would give you a bigger picture. That's my feeling.
Yes, I think that is a very good point. So I've been conducting some eye tracking studies in the past, and still I am. And I have also inquired into affective processes a bit. So what I did in one study was that the students were solving a geometry problem first, and after that I had a stimulated recall interview with the students. So the students were watching their own video again and describing what their eye movements actually meant. And that was quite interesting. I published it last year in Educational Studies, and it was that the affect part was, of course, very interesting. That when the student, for example, encountered that he had made a mistake, or when he had kind of like time pressure and he had emotional arousal. You could see that quite well in the eye movement data, because the eyes were jumping around. He was saying I was panicking a little bit. So the eyes were jumping around in the data. So that was very interesting. And in the recent study that I conducted in the end of last year, and I'm just writing a paper about it, it was the same process for other students as well. So when they are hectic or panicking or whatever, you can see that because the eyes actually reflect that a bit. But I totally agree that it's really risky to use the data as it is, only the eye movement data. But it's very important to have like kind of a triangulation with other data, like the interview, because I mean, we cannot look into the people's minds only through the eyes, right? So I think that is a point that Marco also made in this presentation. But I think it's one like channel, one source of data that can really add to the picture.
So, I was just going to say, when you did the video recall, did the students say, oh yes, that's when I was panicking, or that's when I was doing this? Because I think that's the power of that, is that if the student then recognizes, oh, when I panic, when my eyes are darting everywhere, and when I'm feeling whatever, that's I'm panicking. So this is like a meta awareness. Okay, so when I'm panicking like that, I'm not thinking clearly. So I need now to recognize this is a cue for me to calm down and to you know, maybe write some notes or think more carefully. I think that's where the power is for us, helping students to recognize when they're getting into a state emotionally or, you know, whatever, and we can help them maybe understand that and redirect them back to a more cognitive, you know, idea about solving the problem, or whatever we want to call it.
Exactly, and we have like such patterns, for example, about the affective side, that I'm a learning individual as well. So I, as a researcher, now I know when the gaze is jumping around hectically, there's something going on. So maybe there's some whatever anger, some pressure, or something else going on. So it's affective in this moment. I think. Because I have learned that as well, and I'm learning from case to case that I'm conducting these studies, but I think we're just at the very beginning. So there's no interpretation theory about eye movements in these kind of mathematical or whatever tasks. So it's just that we're only starting. I mean, and there are of course other patterns of eye movements as well. So when the students is like looking out of the task sheet and is doing like such a movement that the eye goes up and down again, it's always that the students are thinking about something, processing some information, thinking about the formula, trying to remember something. And it's the same for every student that I interview. So I think that we can learn and build up a theory, but of course it takes some time. And at the moment, I think it really needs triangulations with interview data, because from the data itself, it's really hard to say. And if you then have such a complex situation that we saw in the video that Marco provided, it's really hard to say, because there's so many things going on. I don't know whether the student actually is thinking about something or looking to the other student who is also sitting there, because there's so much information at the same time. It is not that we can interpret with some security what is going on there. So that's really, really tricky.
So there are two things that I would like to pick up of what you said. The first thing is, I think that goes in the direction of multimodal learning analytics, because that is actually like eye tracking as one part of those, so that we can learn from data like eye tracking and all this to kind of enhance the learning process of the students as we go by. And the second was, and now I forgot about what it was. Oh yeah, so like having all these data pieces on one screen is probably the one that is like really tough on us. I think the data that is there could actually be really useful for exactly that. It's just that we might need to you said one video at a time and then triangulate these things.
Okay, so we're all gathering back. Thank you, Chiara, for doing the most hard work now. Not sure how everybody felt in a small group of those, because unfortunately some groups I know
am making sure. I am making sure that everybody is here.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm just while we're waiting, kind of hitting the pause. So that's very nice to see the faces, which I'm missing that much this summer. It's really a pleasure, especially when you have all camera on, then it's really nice. Okay, if we are about all to be back, then what we would like to do now is to kind of bring all together. Let's see what we can do, because I couldn't unfortunately follow all the groups, but in our small group we had nice things to discuss. Let's try to share them. So I just suggest everybody who wants to share their insights to raise a hand or just pop up with a conversation or write their question in a chat.
Anna, you could, I will put in the chat all the chat rooms that were active. So there are 2 pages where
yes.
2 pages where people have written. So I'm putting all 4, but 2 of them are empty. So just, or if you find it faster than I do, where the links are, so you can do that as well. But I'm trying to find it, but there it is. I found it.
I can put it. I have it here. Yes.
It was the 2 first that were active, right?
Yes. So independently from the boards, just I'm basically leaving it now to Chiara and Marco to collect all your impressions.
Mm-hmm.
Let me maybe prompt. One of the most highlight comments that we received in a small group was that the data is extremely complex. There is so much happening that then there is a question, how are we going to tackle all of it? So what I suggest now is to kind of focus on small things that are meaningful. That's it.
I noticed from what group 4 was writing that there are a lot of cases outside of mathematical area, and then I don't know if it's suggesting or claiming that it's pointless, but I would disagree with that. So especially when we talk about collaborative problem solving, the gaze is at each other in the group. So this can be very important. Like when students work together, they can look at each other's faces to kind of read whether there is agreeableness with the idea or where they are looking at and following the gaze of the other student to find the way to collaborate. So not just the mathematical areas are relevant for all of the things that we're interested.
Marco, can I quickly respond to that, because it was
sure.
Yeah, I was basically pasting all my private comments when I saw we just have like 30 seconds left there, and what got lost here was the question mark after pointless. So it's important, but yeah. So I fully agree with you that there can be they can be very important. But in general, since the data are so rich and it's so hard to get an overview of what's going on, we were actually discussing how one could maybe make sense of the data in some way. For example, we were discussing whether where the different actions that we see, whether gestures and gaze points, where they are congruent, where they support each other, and maybe at some points they are not, and that could be interesting. And this comment is to be seen in this line of reasoning.
So like at one moment, the guys there said that was my idea. And that's a kind of a disruption of the process, right? And but then they, on the other way, goes like together, and she says kind of, I love you, you're the best. That's a great idea. So that's very nice.
I think there are some interesting comments on this Group 5 discussion area. There's this that the different data sources are complementary, and that's what we think is very important, that there is some kind of interview involved to make sense of what the gazes mean to people. But it's again adding more work to the data collection if everyone is interviewed for the long time.
Should I add something? Or I didn't, because I was in Group 5. So I'm not sure if that's going over time. I think what was interesting to see, like this combination of, and that's what I understood as the multimodal data analytics, to use the eye gaze to improve the students, or like the interaction with the students in the learning process also of the teacher. That if you know, for example, Michael found not in that data, because we all, everybody in the group also found it pretty complex to follow. So one point was that, for example, different patterns in the eye movement, she found that they can be linked to affect from interviews with the students with a stimulated recall approach, and that can then be used to improve the learning process. So I think that would be linked to the multimodal data analytics. Is this true, Anna?
Certainly, if you're managing to distinguish specific patterns in eye tracking that are reliably not just connected with emotional arousal, but then also contribute to the learning, then that would be super efficient multimodal learning analytics. That's exactly how it works. However, from the research, what I know, it's often that we can, through eye movements, kind of predict the distribution of the eye patterns, but they're not always contributing to the successful learning action. So the people who are learning successfully can look very different, and that's one of the main difficulties for the learning analytics built on eye tracking. I don't know, maybe colleagues are ready to correct me, but that's my overall impression.
Yeah, I don't have any expertise in that, so if Micah doesn't want to say something, I just mentioned another point that came up, was that I think that was also so different, and that's again eye tracking, because I think that was the main focus of what we talked about, was that it was difficult to determine if certain eye directions were to somebody in the video, because I mean, it needs to be probably triangulated from all perspectives. Like, where could somebody look and have like a real good map of who sits where and who looks at what, because linking the eye tracking and the eye directions and the gaze to something, it's difficult, because you always have to see, are they looking at something and what are they looking at? And that's just the difficulty that arises from the data.
There were some interesting moments when the gaze and the gesturing kind of coincided. There was this case when the student 2 started explaining about, do you know the circle inside the square, inside the circle thing? And having a very keen eye contact across the table with student 3, who was responding to that eye gaze. So they were kind of 2 students looking at each other intensely at that moment. And the gesture was kind of the important part of that communication. So I haven't actually checked how the other 2 students, I don't think the teacher was also there. I don't know of the other 3. I haven't checked how they are paying attention to that gesture, but definitely the student with eye contact is paying attention.
But also very interesting that gestures, it's a movement always, and our periphery is specifically sensitive to the movement. So gesture can be very well seen without foveal attention as well. So that's what makes it so difficult. And I see Marcelo have a question.
Good.
Yeah, just Marcelo, would
microphone. Yes. Okay. No, the microphone is just having problem here. So, first of all, sorry I did not see the video, but I would like maybe to call attention to 2 things. I was just wondering if we have eye tracking software on these online environments here, and where people looking at, and we all doing multiple things, I'm sure, at some moment. So don't be, offended or shy about it. So, but that would be very funny to see ourselves as a subject to research. Second is that it's another example of humans with media. In other words, it seems to me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, and that's the question, that there is software that some's where I'm looking, and at the same time, it gives you some kind of clues already, or results. Is that what you're calling the analytics and so on? So it's another technology impregnated of humanity, of whomever developed that. I think the first paper I saw with these kind of things was with Ricardo Nemirovsky a long time ago, old PME. But in any case, it just seems to me that those are the 2 things that we gotta be paying attention a lot in what does this kind of technology structure and participates in the analysis we do. So it's not a question, like 2 issues, and I just thought it would be very funny to have eye tracking for us here. And what I'm doing, and now that I have 4 screens here, I would be a perfect.
I think that's. I'll respond to that, because I think it's very acute question. I haven't seen anyone really carefully tackling that. Is that when people are collaborating with media, so they're not physically with each other, but they can be sharing documents, and it would be very interesting to see how well their visual attention is following each other. So in a video conference, when they are talking about it, about a shared document, and they are working with it, how much their eye movements are getting into synchrony with each other in these situations.
Well, and part of what I said, like in my video, my talk and whatever, can you imagine using that to see how kids are at home trying to learn mathematics, and then look at mom and cup of coffee and chocolate or whatever, and then it's much more confused.
And the intelligent tutor says, close at Facebook. Sorry, it's close at Snapchat these days.
Or if they open that kind of different smile. Ooh, you think about this in mathematics. Oh, no, okay. There was a different window that captured your imagination.
Actually, Marcelo, this technology is really very close to us because the ordinary web camera that's filming me now is capable of doing that. And it's literally capable. And as far as I know, what is actually come at place is that data protection issues, not technical issues, but data protections. In Europe, this kind of tutorial systems would be barely allowed in the near future. But with respect to more East colleagues, we actually don't know, maybe they're already there. That becomes a reality. And then the
and another technical things, can this eye track thing, for instance, read eyes with the here? I can see Marcus' eyes much better than I can see mine. For some reason, the light here is not good with my glasses, and that has been a problem in many live presentations or so. So this is not a problem for them, right?
It is. It reduces the quality often, but depending on the software and the kind of frames that the glasses have, it still could work. It varies depending on the glasses and depending on the technology, but it's always having a poor with glasses.
Conversation. Interesting to think of that on online mathematics education now in this crazy time we live in. And I just started thinking about ourselves, because I was looking at the people in Thailand and see where they're looking at and what they're doing to see if I should shut up or speak some more, things like this, you know. So
I'd like to give the very last words to Chiara to wrap up our conversation today.
We are out of time, so I will say something tomorrow, Anna. I give the stage to you to end this session.
Oh, okay, all right. I mean, indeed, time passes very quickly, and it feels like we only arrived to the interesting things. Unfortunately, as it happens sometimes, the moment we need to close. Thanks again. And hope to see some of you tomorrow when we will continue from this very first looking at the data into the possibilities, how we are coming to the research questions from this richness. So how do we, from monitoring, go in first steps to the research things? That's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much. I am Ramkrishna Panthi from Nepal.
Okay.
I am a mathematics educator.
Aridan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Marcelo.
Rio Claro. Don't you remember that?
Yes. I'm still in Brazil.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
so
can't
now,
travel to Rio Claro now.
Okay. So now we're gonna go to so another room.
Thank you very much to all the participants in this working group, hoping that we have gained as much input as possible to the working group discussion for a substantial sharing. So I think we have to kick off today's program. I would like to continue for our second research report presentation. So I would like to call upon this session chair, Professor Samantha Fernandez-Verdu, University of Alicante, Spain, and Richard Bevell, University of Ottawa, Canada, to chair this session. The presentation, the research report title is How Belief Shape the Selection of Proof for Classroom Instruction. And the presenter will be Daniel Sommerhoff from University of Bonn, Germany. And his team, Stefan Ufer, Esther Brunners. So I hope that I will pass the floor to the chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for all your nice work and the nice presentation. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome all of you to the research report presentation. First of all, for those who has incorporated now, just some instructions for the discussion. We remember you that the presentation is pre-recorded and will not be shown. And we have a period, more or less, 20 minutes for that discussions. And to participate, please put your questions in the chat, and Richard, that is here, I'm not looking you now, but I think it's here, is going to collect. Hello. Hello, Richard. So it's our pleasure to introduce Daniel Sommerhoff from the University of Munich, Germany, who is talking about how beliefs shape the selection of proof for classroom instruction. And now, Daniel, if you want to say something for the audience before starting the discussion, you can do that.
So thank you, Sunita, for the introduction. I hope everyone can hear me. I'm very glad to be part of this conference and report here. My name is Daniel Sommerhoff. I'm a postdoctoral research fellow at LMU Munich, Germany, and I focus on argumentation and proof in secondary and higher education context. And in the research report that I hope some of you viewed, at least the short version of it, we looked at how beliefs shape the selection of proofs for mathematics classrooms. And I think that's what I want to say in advance, and I'm happy to receive questions from all of you.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. So now it's time for the discussion. Remember to post to write your discussion, your questions, your comments in the chat. So I can start maybe. I would like to ask you about, because one of your aspects that you have written for future research in your long presentation is to connect findings to general concepts like professional vision. I am really interested in this line of research, so could you say something more about it, if you have think about something?
Of course. So in our study, Esther Brunner, Stefan Ufer, and I, we were specifically focusing on argumentation and proof because that's our main point of interest. And we looked how different aspects of the task and the proof, the teacher himself, the class, shapes the selection. And if we're thinking about the selection process, the teacher about her class, about the task, the proof, the possibilities the proof might offer. And in our research, we did not look at this very specifically, but of course, professional vision as a general concept also plays a role here. And as I said in my research, or in the recording of my research report, we ask students to select proofs and give a written justification for why they selected which proofs. And I think it would be really interesting, and that's also what we're planning to do, to look into these justifications and start analyzing them both from a mathematics education point of view and from this more general point of view regarding professional vision. Of course, what we did is a question, well, very far away approximation practice regarding vision, a small amount of what is happening in real classrooms, but still it would be interesting to see how future teachers well, justify their selection and to what kind of topics they relate. If they, for example, only write something about perceptions of the classes that were introduced, or if they also draw decisions, conclusions, etc. So I think there's a lot that can be done, and I think it would be interesting.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. I think there is some comment, Richard, in the chat.
Yes, we have a question, and I would encourage everybody to continue adding questions. But there is already a question from Marku Hanula, and here is the question. Your alpha was not very high, it equals 0.63. Did you check for possible item level correlations? I believe that they might be useful in formulating hypotheses for future studies. So Daniel, do you have a response to this comment?
Yeah, so the scales that we use for beliefs were taken from the TEDS-M study, where the alphas of the respective studies were quite a bit higher. I mean, they also had a lot of more participants than we had, and we were a bit surprised about the low alpha. Thinking, well, level correlations, for example, and about differences, for example, regarding the sample, because we looked at future teachers. TEDS-M also looked at in-service teachers and teacher educators. And we're thinking about refining these questionnaires and also making a comparison with different, well, levels of experience. So let's say pre-service teachers, in-service teachers, teachers' educations, to see in how far the scales that we used from TEDS-M are actually, are actually suitable to for pre-service teachers, and in how far the results can be compared to those by TEDS-M. That said, we also looked at the descriptive data, and we see that the findings that we have are pretty much in line with those from TEDS-M, and that there are only little differences between the in-service teachers and the teacher educators, so that we assume that the results are quite plausible and, well, that the scales work with pre-service teachers, but we really can't say from the data that we have at the moment.
Okay,
thank you for this.
I encourage you to give comments and some discussions for Daniel. I can ask another question maybe. Oh, there is one.
We have,
Richard.
yes, question from Stephanie Rasch. The proof comes from different areas of mathematics, or is it only from geometry? Do you think the teacher's choice for the type of proof depends on the area of mathematics that they're thinking about?
Thank you, Steffi, for that question. I guess it needs an online conference to ask this question between two German researchers. So regarding your question, all proofs that we used were actually not from geometry, but they were from elementary number theory. So they were about divisibility. But nevertheless, I think it's a valid point. One thing that I presented in the recording of my research report was this theoretical model that identifies four main factors that influence the selection of proof. And one of these factors is task and proof characteristics. And as you might think, tasks or proofs, no, not proofs, tasks from geometry or other areas might lend some specific types of proof more than other tasks. So if we think about geometry, for example, or about operative proofs, which work with like little boxes symboling the odd numbers or the even numbers and so on. And I think there might be other tasks which not so easily allow to create a operative task, or might easier or not so easy allow to create a formal deductive proof. So yes, I think overall the selection of proof is very dependent on the task and the proofs itself. Regarding the impact of the beliefs, I actually think that deciding for a specific kind of proofs based on specific mathematics-related beliefs might rather be domain or subject independent. However, there is, to our knowledge at least, no other evidence regarding how proofs are selected based on beliefs, so we really can't tell at the moment. As I said initially, this part regarding the beliefs is only a small aspect of the study that we conducted, so we did not have a lot of time to do the analyses also with other items from other domains. And I think this is generally a pretty crucial point in research on argumentation and proof, because most often we look at 1 or 2 or 3 specific claims or a couple of proofs, but can't really look at more because, for example, constructing proofs takes a really long time, and we have our participants for an hour or 2 or 3. Yeah, I think this is something we will have to address in the future, to look at even more proofs and tasks and see how independent the results are.
Okay, and Daniel,
the chat was disabled for some reason.
Yes. I don't know why.
Yes,
can I ask, do we have time?
We should open the chat, you mean, Einat?
No, can I ask a question? Do we have time for asking another question?
We have officially 4 minutes and we started 5 minutes late, so I guess yes.
Yes. We have 10 minutes more, yes, I know.
Yes, my question for Daniel, if you could say more about if you would go on in future studies, would you think it would be meaningful to study beliefs about proof in different domains? So I'm continuing this thread that Stephanie started.
It's a difficult question because it depends a lot on what is the goal you want to achieve. From a theoretical research perspective, I think it would be valuable to have a look, because I think that there might be differences. But if you think about the last comment in the chat from Marco, which I could only read very shortly, but he's talking about the effect on actual classroom behavior. It might not be so much worthwhile, because from what we see and what Marco also commented on is a low explained variance of teachers' beliefs. And so if we go even further into beliefs and look at specific beliefs of specific topics, then the explained variance is going to be even smaller, much likely at least. So thinking about how do we improve classrooms, I think it would not be so very worthwhile doing that. And in our study, which is also submitted and currently under review, we also looked at other factors of these 4 factors that I pointed out. And from what we see, the explained variance of these factors is higher than the explained variance by beliefs. So I probably would not put too much effort into this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. I think there is a comment from Marco. I'm not sure if you have answered the question also, Richard.
Daniel
started answering at least.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So we have Daniel.
Yeah. So I read the second part of might it be that not in the classroom behavior, but that the classroom behavior is causing change in beliefs. And I do very much agree that classroom behavior and classroom experiences of teachers are likely to change beliefs. Then again, I already talked about the results from TEDS-M about in-service teachers and teacher educators, and you don't see that these beliefs are too far apart. So they don't seem to be changing profoundly, let's say. but still also from my own teaching experience, which was quite short, I noticed that some kind of proofs worked better in my class and others did not so much, or some combinations of proofs worked better. So I think this is a longitudinal development. So we were looking at pre-service teachers, which are going into classes with a certain set of beliefs that they acquired during their time as pupils or students at school and university. And I think they will shape their initial behavior at least, and then that might change their beliefs for like the second year at school and so forth. So I guess both perspectives are worthwhile looking at, and it depends a bit on where in the in-service or pre-service time you're looking at.
Okay, thank you. It's time out, so okay. Thank you, Daniel, for your nice presentation, because you have done a short and a long for your nice presentations. And thank you, everyone, for all the questions and the nice discussion. And I think we need to start with the next. So thank you very much for all of you.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Okay. Christine Swinskels from University of Mainz, Germany, with the title Comparing the Predictive Power of the First Grader General Cognitive Skills and Prior Knowledge on Later Achievement. So I will give the floor back to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to swap roles for the second session. So just get ourselves organized for a moment. So welcome everybody to this third research report of the 2020 virtual meeting of PME. And I've noticed that we have a new kind of greeting in PME, and it goes like this: good morning, good afternoon, good evening. And for me, it's good morning. I'm in North America, but many of you are everywhere else in the world. So excellent. And if we move on with this research report, before we start, I just want to welcome PME members and guests in the Zoom session, or people following live on YouTube. You're very welcome to join us. The presentation, if you haven't, this is the first research report you've attended in the virtual meeting. The presentation is pre-recorded and will not be shown now. We're just going to have a discussion period, which will take about 20 minutes. In terms of participation, if you have a question or a comment, please put them in the chat function for those who are participating in Zoom. So for PME members in Zoom, you can start writing your comments or questions straight away, or you can put responses as well when we hear from the authors of the research report. So now I'm going to ask our presenter to briefly say hello so that we can hear from her. And I will give you all a few seconds more to think of which question you would like to ask. So please say hello, Kirsten Winkel from the University of Mainz.
Yeah. Hello, welcome from Mainz. So for me, it's in the afternoon and I'm at the moment outside, but I hope the internet connection is stable.
Thank you. So you're welcome to the session. So I think now we can start seeing whether there are any questions or comments. Thank you, Kirsten, for your video. Very nicely done video, very clear. And so now it's the time for people to put comments or questions about your presentation. And it usually takes a few moments for people to start thinking and then typing something.
I had prepared my questions when I was watching.
Okay, so
So I can
Zenaida, I
already
think
begin.
we have some first questions.
Okay, yes, we have a comment from Marco.
Yeah.
In present design, you use many control variables. Did you check if the model is the same for different groups? For example, the prior knowledge may be more important for students from low SES families, or the weights of the variables may be different across genders.
Mm-hmm. So maybe I already start with the comments I see. I just have to check because normally I hear the question and then I can think about it while I hear it and I can just read it. So you have many control variables. Yes, we control for all these variables and we control for SES too, but we didn't check heterogeneity until now. Yes, so we still want to do that, but this was the first approach here that we tried to get this done. So the sun changed a bit. Maybe I move over here. Yeah.
Could you complete your response, Kirsten?
Yeah, so I think I cannot say any about these details you asked for because we didn't check that until now. Yes, so we just had it with the whole sample. Yeah, we checked it out and find it out, but we didn't check any heterogeneity with these SES or weight the variables differently, or we didn't check gender. We just controlled for it because we were not interested in the gender question or the SES question, but we want to check it in more detail later on.
So
okay.
I just had to figure out some question because everything you presented was so clear. I couldn't really ask anything about what you already presented, so I had to do some extensions.
Very good. Thank you, Marku. And hope we can get a few more comments in a moment. Perhaps while people are thinking a bit more, I can pop in a question myself. It's a more philosophical question. You focus a lot on things like working memory and personality, and I'm wondering what your perspective is on how changeable these things are. You start with young children, and if you find that working memory, personality is a factor, does that mean their path is set for the rest of their lives? Or are these things that can be changed? And if so, how do you change them? What's your perspective?
That's a good question. So maybe I begin with a working memory. Yes, so working memory, that was the main intervention of the study we did. Yes, so I just used the first evaluation section, but the intervention began afterwards. So with these 500 children, we did a working memory intervention about 5 weeks, 30 minutes daily, yeah, and they improved impressively in working memory. So within the intervention, that's the main paper. Yeah, I put you at the side, yeah, where all the control variables are in. And then, for example, the working memory, the interesting part was that the 500 children improved all in working memory within these 5 weeks. Yes, so we had an effect size directly after the intervention of about 0.4. And the interesting part was that this was sustainable. So when we measured half a year later with the same population, yeah, the effect size was still between control group and intervention group was still 0.4 and was highly significant, although we didn't have any differences between control and treatment within these half year. Yes, so we only trained before, and then we waited for half a year and the effect was stable. And also after 1 year, the effect was still stable. So therefore, we have high evidence that working memory is trainable. Yeah, and if you just have the idea of working memory as having a juggler in your mind, yeah, who juggles with bits of information, the idea was within this training, the kids who juggled, the training was highly adaptive, and the idea is that the kids who had 3 balls juggling before the training could juggle 4 balls after the training, and those who had already 6 balls, who could juggle that, they could juggle 7 balls after the training. So they all improved, and we don't have high heterogeneity effects in this training because the training was adaptive all the time. Yes, so the training measured this all the time. That was interesting. And also we looked for transfer effects, and that's the point where other working memory studies didn't do so much. So they didn't look for transfer effects in follow-up measures. Yes, so there are meta studies for working memory training, and they didn't find out much, but they didn't wait long enough. That's our idea. So we didn't have, for example, transfer effects of the training directly after the training. Yes, so we didn't measure anything, for example, in arithmetic, nothing in reading, nothing in geometry. But after waiting for half a year, there became a little effect, and then the effect increased without any difference between treatment and control within this year. They only had the training at the beginning. So the effect size on geometry, which is completely different than working memory, was there after 1 year after the training. Yes, so we have another study from the German Science Foundation. I just began, and without Corona, I would have already data, but like this, I don't have data where I can show you something. So the idea is if we bring this training, closer to mathematics, so it was an abstract working memory training, and if we bring this closer to mathematics, then we can have even higher effects on this. And the other point is maybe the personality. It's just the other measures of personality, if you have a fixed mindset of personality, so there's a high discussion about this thing, but the factor openness, the child is hungry for knowledge, the child is curious, and all these things, maybe if you just set the mindset in these children that they want to learn something, that curiosity means something, maybe that's also change, but we don't have any intervention data about this point. But my idea is that it cannot be as fixed, to be curious, to be hungry for knowledge. The only part which is more fixed is the part of openness, which is correlated to IQ, because IQ is more or less fixed, and this part of the openness variable, maybe we cannot change that so much.
Yes, interesting, and makes me think about research.
Sorry, Richard, I just want to inform you that the chat is disabled.
Oh, yes. Again.
So people are not able to write, so you may want to ask them if they want to raise their hands.
I think that Tracy wants to participate because she has one.
Yes, I just wanted to say the same as Einat. So could we ask people to speak their questions, please?
Yeah.
Okay, so I can ask. I don't know.
Yes, Einat.
So I have a question that continues Richard's philosophical question, but a bit more practical. If you could, if I was an elementary school teacher, what would be the implications of your study for my teaching practice? Could you give me some advice?
Sure. So I worked as a primary school teacher for more than 10 years, and we also did some trainings with teacher trainers, who learned about our intervention at school, and they also asked this question, of course, what they can do. So when we look at our intervention, we do not have any negative effects on anything, although we had a control group which was active. So the control group had just normal teaching in math and language and everything, and science. So the kids in our treatment group, they missed this, so they missed some teaching, and although they missed teaching, we do not have any negative effect size. And therefore, maybe not just because of one intervention, but if we could confirm these results, we could just say that maybe not only problem solving, what I find very important, is important for the children, but maybe also that we have these ideas of, in German you say Kopfrechnen, so just computing something in your mind or playing memory games, so that you just have to memorize data, what you need later on for problem solving, for proving something, so that you train to get more variables, juggling in your mind, and that this could also be, very important for the children to follow the proofs, to follow the teaching, to learn something new and so on, that they could hold these information. And for example, that they know the beginning of the sentence when they already finished at the end, and then only then they can understand the sentence.
So if people, as we don't have the chat, if people would like to comment or make a question, you can use the raise hand function. So then this will pop your name to the top of the list, and we'll see on our screen. So, and to find that, you go
I think
in the
because
list.
I'm a host, I don't have the raise hand option, so I have to ask for.
I think you do, but you did anyway. You raised your voice. There we go.
You mentioned that you had an intervention of the working memory, and I would like to hear a bit what kind of and some working memory models talk about maximum 4 units. So I'm a little bit curious what kind of intervention you have and how you define the working memory units in your model.
Yeah, so the working memory training was just the typical working memory training used in the literature currently. So there's a high discussion in psychology at the moment, about this working memory training. Is it effective or not? So there's one part who says, no, it's not effective, and the other part says it's effective, and therefore we want to bring that together and find some evidence. So just the idea of the working memory training, it's relatively abstract, so that's not about numbers or letters or something. It's just about, for example, there are some just walking around in space, and then they light up. So this lights up, and then this lights up, and then this lights up, and while they are lighting up, they are just slowly continuing moving around, and then the student has to point the 3 asteroids lighting up, and then when it's too easy for the child, then 4 asteroids are lighting up, and then 5 and 6, and when it's too hard, the number of asteroids decreases again. So that's just one typical setting, and of course they don't all move around. There's some other patterns, for example, where there are lights in a matrix, 4x4 matrix, and then they light up here and here and here, and then the matrix turns about 90 degrees, and then the children have to memorize the position of the lighting bubbles. So that's a basic idea without having something to show you. I could also show you something if you want some screen share, but that's the basic idea, just to memorize bits of information, and then these bits of information can be verbal or they can be visuospatial, and we trained more in the visuospatial area, but although we trained in the visuospatial area, we have effects on reading later on after 1 year.
Okay. Answers? How long do we have left? Somebody is keeping time.
2 minutes, I think.
That's what I thought too, but yes. 2 minutes, yes. Okay. Very good.
Would be one question from Elsie if time allows.
You can see a question somewhere? From Els?
Would like to ask a question.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
So, hi. I think it's really interesting. I do a lot of work with children in war zones, and one of the big issues there is that working memory doesn't work because of war stress. And there's also this like no resources. It's not low resources, it's no resources. And so when you say like this little thing with the blinking stars could work, I was just thinking, because they can't work with, that there's no computer access and all that kind of stuff. Would it just help with doing memory games, or, the memory board games that you use? Or is there another dimension to these stars that you have to remember that would help develop the memory first?
A quick response from Kirsten. Kirsten's still there? I think we've lost Kirsten.
Yes.
She was outside, so maybe a leaf got in the way of the signal. Okay, well, that's unfortunate. It was an interesting question, Els. Thank you, and nice to see you. But with the disappearance of Kirsten, I think, and given that there's basically no time left, I think we have to come to a slightly abrupt end to the session. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining us on Zoom and on YouTube. Thank Kirsten. We'll send her a note for a video presentation and for responding to our questions. And thank everybody, all the organizers, for this rather amazing virtual meeting. And that's it. I'm going to hand it back to our organizer host people in Thailand, where it must be getting near to bedtime. So back to Thailand.
Okay, thank you very much to the presenter, Kristen Winkels, and also to both chair for helping us, for your assistance to make a very clear and comprehensive discussion. Okay, thank you for attending today's event. I hope all of us will find today's events to be fruitful and also engaging. Over the visual meeting, we will be continue all this, our virtual meeting will be continued by tomorrow at the same time. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you to KKU organizers.
It's so precious. It's very happy and relaxing now.
Thank you too. So sorry, my internet was unstable, so I didn't hear the last question. I couldn't answer, but maybe you can send me an email and then I can answer you the question. Thank you all.
Okay. Bye-bye, you all. See you tomorrow.
Okay, well, good night, good afternoon, good morning, goodbye.
Oh, good morning.
Bye-bye.
Yes, good
Bye,
night.
Richard. Bye, Mark.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Seneda.
Bye, all of you.